Hi, I'm Cruz Goler. I'm the chef at Lupa Restaurant, and today I'm going to be showing you how to break down this akiyushi beef brisket from Heritage Foods and show you how to trim it up and a couple of things that we might do with it once it's trimmed up. So, a cut like this, although there's lots of fat, intermuscular fat, you'll notice like there's this large cap here, and we want to take off some of that, but personally, I like this. This is like really good fat, or moist fat, you could say. And especially when you're braising something or long cooking like this, some of it shrinks down anyway. But it's also delicious, especially with a beef of this quality. So we're going to keep some of this. So the trim on this is going to be pretty minimal. You might want to trim it up just to kind of, some of it cooks a little even. The tail of it, kind of cut that off a little bit. And then we can feel there are some very large deposits, and no one ever wants a really thick piece of meat, thick piece of fat rather. So we'll trim some of the huge chunks off, but I'm going to leave most of this fat on. And the stuff that I'm going to take off is the really, if you can feel this, is the really softer, flabbier fat. That's gonna kind of come off, and I'm gonna leave the firmer, denser fat on. But any real big chunk, I'm just gonna kind of take off. So for this cut, that's pretty much all I'm gonna do. It's actually it arrived pretty trimmed up pretty well. That's all I'm gonna take off of that for here. So this being a brisket, it's a cut where this meat here, this is going to take a long time to get tender. It's going to take a very long time to braise it. And what's going to happen is this fat's going to break down. It's going to help also keep this meat moist. And that fat's going to break down in the process too. And the whole thing's going to be delicious eventually. One of my favorite things is just barbecuing it, or slow cooking it very, very slow. So that would involve, we'd probably take like some sort of rub here that has a good amount of salt and spices, basically. Rub it all like that, let it stay there anywhere from, a few hours to a day. Let that sit on there, and then you could smoke this in your smoker, or have this little Weber. It's like the dome grill, but it has a little smoker in there, so you can let that go very slowly. Probably about 8 hours of like very low heat, like 200, 225 degree heat, and you don't really have to worry about it drying out, because all this fat is in there to kind of keep it generously moist. Now, the other thing that I like personally, maybe in Italian cooking for brisket, is make it soup base. So this makes it a very flavorful beef broth. In conjunction, you would need some bones and stuff like that. But if you want meat garnish for your broth, I really like brisket. Brisket has that unique texture, and all the little fat that it has involved in there. It's delicious for soup. So that's probably what I would do with that thing. So if you were to do this in your house, even in a small New York City kitchen with a very small oven, you don't need a whole ton of space or anything. Space is not really the issue. It's more about temperature. You could cook this dry and very, very, very slowly roast it at about 225 degrees for maybe 6 to 8 hours till it's, or longer if you have the patience and the wherewithal. Because of all this fat, you really wouldn't need moisture for this cut. You wouldn't really worry about it too much drying out. And then braising would just involve, covering this most of the way with liquid, adding some vegetables, cook it the same amount of time or longer, just barely simmering for maybe 8 hours, 6 hours with some vegetables, and then once it's done, you can cool it down and trim it up and do what you like with it. Make some very good sandwich, as we know, soups, barbecue, things like that. The only thing with preparing this is you just need to be prepared to spend the time cooking it, or you can do lots of other things while you're cooking it, because it doesn't really require that much attention. But butchering it, it's very, that's a very simple process for it's really just about trimming this up after it's cooked. Now, if this arrived, or if you had another piece that had a lot of it's what we call silver skin that's over that, you could take some of that off. But this piece it's really just fat and very lean, clean, trimmed beef. It's a nice piece, and so that's all you really need to worry about with that.
Great. Well, it was a pleasure having you. Thank you for taking the time and demonstrating for our customers.
I'm going to enjoy eating this.